So next up, my co-curator, Nancy Lynee Wu. Nancy is an incorrigible optimist. Incorrigible, that's a great word. I love that word. I'm just incorrigible. A 2015 Penn Center USA Emerging Voices Fellow and the founding editor of Lucid Moose Lit, a social justice-focused literary press. She's published 2 poetry chapbooks, Bearing the Juice of It All and Rampant. She's a community organizer and an activist and is always in the middle of a few projects. I don't know what that's like at all. She is co-founder of the Long Beach Literary Arts Center and a lead organizer in Fourth Media. She holds a degree in sociology from UC Santa Cruz and lives in Long Beach, where she works as a ghostwriter and content editor. She also teaches community poetry workshops called Surprise the Line. Her first full-length book, I'd Rather Be Lightning, is forthcoming. Forthcoming. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nancy Lynee Wu.
Thank you, Steve. Forthcoming. That means it's not out yet, but I'm writing it. Yeah. Whew. Okay, so I'm here because I love books. There's a lot of books in this building that you can buy. And I just carried a lot of books. Actually, my boyfriend carried a lot of books up into my second-story apartment. It was a lot of books. So I'm here because I love books. I guess you did too? Yeah. So, oh man. So Steve and Raindog, they're great. There's so many things. I'm like, yes, writing. It is mysterious. And you write a lot of things over and over again. And you don't even know when you're done. You just keep doing it compulsively. So that's what it's like to be a writer. And, okay, so Raindog asked how many of you have ever written a poem. So now, I'd like to ask how many of you have ever read a book of poetry, like a whole book of poetry. So not as many hands. Interesting. That's cool. Okay, so I'm going to keep that in mind because at the end of my little speech, I've got a treat for some of you. So I have been a poet since I was 8 years old, but I've only recently come out of denial. So I feel like this is what it's like for a lot of writers. We eventually have to unconvince ourselves that we're not a writer, but you are writing all the time, and then eventually something clicks. Like you do it enough, you publish a book, you do whatever that is that you get to say for yourself, I'm a writer. So I'm going to attempt to tell you why I am co-founding a literary arts center here in Long Beach for people, specifically those of you or out there in the world, thank you, who don't yet know you're a writer or want the resources to be a writer. So I'm going to attempt to tell you why I'm doing that. Time goes fast, I'm going to go fast. Okay, so I started as a poet when I was 8 years old. I came out of denial in about 2012 when I moved here to Long Beach. Long Beach is a magical place. My story is full of a lot of magic. So I'm going to attempt to tell you the series of magical moments that brought me here. Because first I was a secret poet from the ages of 8 until 22. I was scribbling furiously in my room. Anyone do that? Not yet a writer? Okay, yeah. So I wrote a Christmas poem for my 4th grade teacher when I was 8. Then I secretly joined a message board online as a teenager that I was on for 10 years. Nobody knew I was on it, but I was writing on this message board. The internet is amazing for many things, including secretly being a writer. And then in college, I kind of forgot about all of that, but I was still secretly writing poems. And then finally, I came to Long Beach, and the first thing that happened. I started dating a guy who worked for a literary press here in Long Beach. Anyone ever heard of Right Bloody? Yeah, okay. So Right Bloody used to be here. And in the building which I worked, the Pacific Tower, which I think is one that Steve's grandfather built. Yep. Okay. Full circle. Here we go. And then that press showed me there are real, living, live, breathing poets who are out there writing and publishing books. This was like first thing, opening. Ends up that they moved to Austin, and I take over the Right Bloody office for my own purposes. That lasted a little while until I realized, I was 23, and what am I doing with an office? I didn't know exactly what I was doing yet. Okay, event number 2. I started just going to workshops here in Long Beach. There's one here downtown, the Poetry Lab. Anybody know the Poetry Lab? Yeah. So I decided, after I saw these live poets, I'm going to be a poet. How do I do that? I don't know. I'm going to go find a group, or I'm going to create a group. So I found the group. I said, in 5 years, I'm going to publish my first book. Okay? And then event number 3. This is when things start happening really, really, really fast. So it's kind of like you look back at your life, and that thing that's inside of you that's always been there, you see how the dots connect. So I met Sarah Tatro, Sarah Thursday. She's actually one of the co-founders of this event, How I Made It. And together, the two of us, sometimes you meet people in your life, you're just like, bam, this is fire! And you just create. So that's what Sarah and I did. And we were going to readings, we were going to workshops. And then it was just like, whoa, we're finding ourselves, we're poets. Okay, 4th thing that happened. She started a poetry website called Cadence Collective, which is still live. There's still live readings here, second Mondays, at Fox Coffee House, which is a great community. She published one of my poems called The Catwalk on WordPress. And she called me up one day and she was like, Nancy, oh my God, your poem is getting like hundreds of views right now. Yesterday we got 12, and today there's 600 views. What's happening? And we found out that the poem had gotten freshly pressed on WordPress. It's just like a publicity thing. She was like, oh my God, we have 50 comments. The comments are happening right now. And so we came over I went over to her house, and we just like watched the views just like tick up. And we're like, whoa, these are people that we don't know reading this work. And that was the first time that I felt what it was like to have an audience and to connect with people through my writing. Because as much as we are writers, we're also readers. So I felt that moment. And that was pretty big. I don't think I have I am talking fast. Maybe I have time to read that poem for you. Because, you write to yourself and you're like, nobody cares about what I'm writing except for me. Either that or everybody cares. You fall somewhere in between the two extremes, right? So I was the type who was like, nobody cares. This is bad. It's stupid. It sucks. And Sarah was actually one who pushed me to publish this first little one. And for her, this was the first book that she published through her press, which Sadie Girls, she's published dozens of books by now. So, power partnership. And she's the one who told me, Nancy, just put some poems together and we'll put them in a book. And this was a big lesson, because as a writer, sometimes you think it will never be done, and sometimes it isn't done. But sometimes you need to publish it anyway, even if it's not done, because then you move on to the next thing. It keeps you moving. So this is that first poem, I guess. The Catwalk. The reason why I don't clean or fix my car and then drive around Belmont Shore looking smug with taillights smashed and duct tape mirrors gaping at all the fluffed rich people shopping is because I might want them to be offended by my poorness. I learned this in 4th grade when I would, without fail, walk into my gifted and talented education classroom where smart kids go to be told they're smart, in Orange County where the envious go to flourish, in their hive-cement sidewalks, 15 minutes late every day, creaking open the door to teacher already talking, interrupting because my mother, worn out and coffee-fixed, could never fit a schedule. It was her subtle way of resisting her tug-along fate. At least she could rebel against time, and usually my clothes were old or dirty or hand-me-downs my friends' mothers who pitied me gave me, and here I learned how to walk in this rag fashion show kind of way. Quiet, but smiling, that smile, like I was saying, yeah, look at me. Look at the isness of my difference. I'll strut on in when I want and grin until you believe I'm really grinning. Smirk wide, like I am better than you, for knowing what poverty feels like. Thank you. And then from there, Sarah and I decided to publish this book, which was, so the social justice focused press that we started, Lucid Moose Lit. The first one was Gutters and Alleyways, Perspectives on Poverty and Struggle, because we went to AWP, which is the big annual writing conference, and we realized, a few things. It's a moneyed conference, and it's like 85% white people and older people, and there wasn't a lot of conversation around social justice topics in the official literary world. So we wanted to do something about that, and we published this anthology. Like Raindog said, there are, it's just so much work. So this was, what point am I on? This is point number 5. Yeah, I became a publisher. As fast as I'm trying to get through this, this is how fast I feel like this was happening. Huh?
Those books are for sale.
Yeah, those books are here. But bam, it was just woo, 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 woo. At the same time, I was writing my own book, but I didn't know I was writing it. I took a workshop by Desiree Canal, if anyone knows her. She runs, Rose Writers Workshop. And at the time, I still wasn't really sure I was a writer, but I went in. And all of a sudden, because it was such a supportive, encouraging environment, I was able to start really, really getting into my story. So I started writing that manuscript. And at the same time, I was reading The Artist's Way. If anyone has, So if you haven't, if you are a budding artist or if you want to explore your creativity, The Artist's Way, I recommended to some guy that I was driving in my car the other day. I told him, go read The Artist's Way if you are interested in being a writer or an artist, because it changed my life. And I ended up teaching a class on that through the Long Beach Free School with Rachel Rifkin. And these two people, these are the ones that I'm founding Literary Arts Center with right now. So this was a few years back, 2013. So I started working with them, and I started writing my own manuscripts. And then from there, I went and I applied to the Emerging Voices Fellowship in the Penn Center, USA, and I got in. And it was a pretty competitive fellowship, but I got in 2015, and for 7 months I disappeared into the world of trying to learn how to be a writer, in this very official way. It's kind of like a condensed MFA program for people who don't go to MFA programs. Technically, their mission is to provide the tools and resources for writers who lack access to literary arts. So that culminated with a reading in the Hammer Museum in front of the biggest audience that I've ever spoken in front of. It was about 300 people. It was wild. And ever since then, so then after that I came back to Long Beach and I was like, I have hit an existential crisis. And I didn't really know what to do with myself at that point, because I was like, I have just been told, over and over again, every week for 7 months, you need to be a writer, you need to be a writer, you need to go out, you need to get published, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it was such a valuable program, but Long Beach is great. Long Beach is hey, you can do it. What's up? You're making this thing, I'm making this thing. And the Penn Center is no, you are not successful enough until you go out and you win that award, that prize. So I was whoa, in my brain I was I want to be in the literary world. At the same time I was but can't we just chill out a little bit and, just be present and just write, let the process happen. So that's kind of where I ended up in Long Beach with Rachel and Desiree at the end of my existential breakdown, deciding that I was going to stay here in Long Beach and build the center that I wish that I could have had here in this city, because like I said earlier, our vision is a city that loves and supports the literary arts. And I believe that writing is more than just telling your story or telling other people's stories or making up stories. I think it's about healing a lot of the time and connecting with others. And, because language has the power to shape our reality. The words that we choose to use create the reality that we see. It's really hard not to write. It's really hard to write every day and not learn something about yourself and kind of want to become a better person. And, you know, as writers, we write every day. So I think that's the reason why I am building the Literary Arts Center, because I want to change the world in a positive way. I think a lot of us do. And I think you have to change yourself in order to change the world. So I want to provide a space for people to write. Thank you.